Hi, good evening, guys. Welcome back to the Malaysian Architecture Education Online Lecture Series, proudly presented by MASA. Hope you guys are doing well, and thank you for joining us for tonight. For those who are new, MASA, known as Malaysian Architecture Students Alliance, and it is a non-profit student committee acting directly under PAM, which is Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia. And MASA consists of students representatives from all architecture institutes in Malaysia. During this time of MCO, MASA and PAM have decided to launch this online lecture series for students to be more productive and gain more insights. Architect Adrianta is the head of PAM Education, and Dr. 𝐂𝐧 is the convener. My name is Yimin, a MASA representative from UPN, and I'll be your MC for today. So now, I would like to welcome our guest speaker, our 20th online lecture, Architect Steven Thang, on the topic of fundamentals of conservation of heritage buildings. Architect Steven Thang was trained as a conservator at Borobudur, Indonesia. He is currently the Home Treasurer of International Council on Monument and Site ICOMOS Malaysia, Chapter and Chairman of PAM Heritage and Conservation Committee. A.R. Steven is a registered architect and in practice for more than 30 years and a council member of PAM. He is also active in CIDB and Department of Standards Malaysia, where he is the chairman of the Ceramic and Sanitary Technical Committee, chairman for Building and Engineering Technical Committee, and the committee member in other various technical committees. So sit back and relax. We will have the Q&A session at the end of the talk. But if you have any question during the sharing, feel free to type them down in the chat box so we can attend to them at the end of the sharing. Without further delays, I would like to invite Architect Steven Thang. Hi, A.R. Steven.
Hello. Hi, Yimin.
Okay, I'll pass the floor to you now.
Okay, thanks, Yimin. All right, hello, everyone. Sorry I have to talk on a Friday night. I know I robbed you all from what I call a Friday night with yours without. Anyway, thank you for attending this talk, and I'm privileged to be invited to give this talk. Topic of fundamentals of conservation of heritage buildings. Now, I choose subject. I think is important that most of us need to know heritage building, what they are, and how are they come about. Why are we not paying or paying attention to these buildings? And I have today lineup of almost 60 slides, I think. I'll browse through them. Hopefully, won't take a lot of your time. But the important thing is today is I want to share with you, and that by the end of it, hopefully you have an idea of what heritage buildings and how do you appreciate it, and what you're going to do with it, how we're going to do with it, how do you distinguish that and one of the buildings, all the other cultural things with it. Okay, without further ado, let's see what I have in mind for you today. Oops, wait, hold on. I got to close this one, I think. Yep. Eileen is not moving. Okay, there you go. Sorry, computer stuff. Okay, I will talk about the concepts, definition of heritage, conservation guidelines and legislations, monument and sites, we're building adaptive use, living monument, and then we have city, development, feasibility. Now the city and development, I won't be talking a lot about it unless I have time, because it's a topic by itself. It's quite a large topic. Yeah? It goes very big, talking about cities and how they develop, all those need to know. And then we go on to the conservation method, professional involved, workflow, testing, science of treatment, traits, and then maintenance. Maintenance, I just briefly talk about it. So basically, this is the gist of what will be the idea of heritage is about. And hopefully at the end of the day, you all can appreciate it. Okay, next one. So one of the biggest things in when you go to heritage is perception. Why perception? Look at these 3 big photograph here. I put it in. They're taken in Penang. Very simple. You look at it, you look at it, and you see the heritage building. So then what are they? So straight away you give a perception of their heritage building. They are old. They say they are colonial days, and I say that then you go and give a lot of other things. But there's perception of what you think it is. And when you go into heritage and conservation or conservator, you don't do that. You try not to avoid perception. We have a very analytical mind to be a conservation professional. So we need that. So now, why perception? Okay, look at this picture. It's a hippopotamus in the zoo. We all know that, right? But if you think the other way around, the hippopotamus is actually basking in the sun, and those guys are actually it's all in the lockup, right? So you think of it that way. So it's called perception. Now, same as this, the longer, the shorter. So image can give you very wrong perception of things. It's like what I'm trying to say earlier. When you look at those old buildings, you think that these are what they are, but actually it's not that way. It could be the same thing. Look at this. You read the thing. You read your Paris in the spring. The middle triangle. Once in a lifetime. Then bird in the hand. But if you look properly again, Paris in the spring. You see, like earlier I said, the building, you give a perception, you go straight and give an idea of what you think of that building without actually knowing the details of the building, what influenced the building, who built them, why were they built, what was the influence at that time. Was there an architect involved or just a contractor to build it? Who were the owners then? So you need to put all those things together, the puzzle together to get a clear picture of what it was. Same thing here. Okay, let's look at another one. So we look at it, perception, judgment, and learning. So this is a typing museum, by the way. The one on the left was taken years ago, right? And now, today, it looks this way. So by then it's black and white and the other day. So the perception is that the roof is going to be red or clay color. But was it this clay color at that time? Was the building white? It could be light yellow, light blue. The roof could be gray for all you know. So again, these are all perception, right? We straight away say, oh, those days, the roof must be clay roof. Just go and make a statement without actually analyzing it. When we did this one in Jugra, the first thing we did was the perception was it was a jail. It was a jail, it was in a ruin, but they said the locals all say it was a jail. We went in and we do some investigation, but we found it cannot be a jail because of the way the floor plans are. It cannot be a jail at all. We did some archaeological dig and then we found further evidence. They said, no, it's not a jail. It was a police station. They call it in Malay, those days they call pasong. So it was a police station. So we redo it again and to be as close as what we think it was at the time. But we don't have a real evidence that it's going to look like that. We don't have that. So these are also, again, some assumption. Now, limitation and biases in perception and judgment. So it's a desire to make a theory and theories and ideas from facts, whether by the seeing that or reason by process. So it's important that we know that what we want to do with these things. Staircase, old staircase, this is in Siam Reap, you still want to keep it. And then, but people will come, you sit down there and hear what the tourists say. So a different batch from different countries will give a different perception of what the staircase were. Some would say this was the bathing area. Some would say, no, this was a commerce area, the boat comes in, or things like that. So each has its own perception of what it was there. But if you ask the researcher, she or he will tell you what these steps were meant to be, what they were. So we can't stop people from perception on this. So it's a duty, a job of the conservator to actually do the study, or historian, archaeologist as well, to understand what they were there at the time. Then you make a statement to them. Yeah? So look at the last paragraph. Generally, human beings are poor at combining multiple sources of information. Their previous experience in particular tends to dominate their thinking and lead to the repetition of well-used methods. This gives significant bias. This is what I was explaining earlier. You look at the shop lot, you give a biased view of it already, without going to knowing the facts of it, without going to inspect, what I call it, to look further, the details of it, the architectural aspect, the material aspect of it, to give you an idea of what it was. So, so the next time you see, spend a bit more time, look at it, and then appreciate it, and you can see a lot of different things happening around the building. And you can't just say, oh, this is an influence of a Victorian, for example. It may not be. It could be a mix of those days. People would like to have a bit from the British, a bit from the French, a bit from here and there. So it's like a rojak. Huh? But then when we look at it, we give a particular style to it. We say this is Victorian, but actually Victorian influence is only probably 1/10 of all the details you see. Okay. So then let's talk about heritage. What defines heritage? Oxford English Dictionary defines heritage as property that is or may be inherited, and inheritance value things such as historic buildings that have been passed down and relating. So it's something that passed down, we call it heritage. But heritage is such a big word. You know, there are other words that also comes together with cultural and all these things are all intertwined with each other. So far, so good, huh? So then we have UNESCO. You often hear about UNESCO, how they. So UNESCO does, we call it prescribed World Heritage Sites. And after intensive study, then there's a committee that recommend that this site is worthwhile to be called a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now I'll go later on to it. What kind of sites are there? There are probably all kind of sites there are. So UNESCO has set itself the task of preserving those natural and cultural assets. So here you can see the word natural and cultural. So for example, Taman Negara is a natural heritage type thing. And then the cultural, a temple, for example, a certain church or a place of an old market that's a cultural significance. So the International Convention of 23rd November 72 concerning the protection of the world cultural natural heritage. The World Heritage Convention, for short, is the most important international tool created by the community of nations to protect its cultural and natural heritage. So this international committee is sit down and say, look, we need to take care of all these things, put the standards up. So then UNESCO, being the international accepted body, will then give recognitions to these places. So then people start to preserve them. Then they get value from it, okay? So currently, UNESCO has prescribed about 981 properties. Could be more now, a few more. Yearly, there are about 2, 3, I think. So in Malaysia, we have also a few UNESCO sites. Most famously will be our Mulu Caves, and also Penang and Malacca is a prescribed World Heritage Site. Yeah. So it has its good and also some bad things about when it's prescribed, because you have to observe. Once it put as a listed as a World Heritage Site, you have to make sure that it maintained that way, or you will lose the identity. So let's look at cultural heritage. Cultural heritage sites currently on the World Heritage is like include buildings, historical important town centers, archaeological sites, monuments to engineering history, uh, industry monuments, and important memorial sites from human history. So it's cultural. Huh? Then there's a natural site, heritage. Uh, Belum Lake, for example, in Malaysia, Mulu Park. Natural heritage include important ecosystems, site bearing witness to it's called evolution history, natural paradises, and conservation areas for plant, animals threatened with extinction. So there are 174 natural heritage properties on the UNESCO's list. So there's a distinction between these two now. Of course, there are many more. Then we go on to heritage is basically divided into two things, importantly, tangible and intangible. So what are they? Which one are we concerned with? We are concerned both, but as architect, we tend to be more on the tangible, which we can see and touch. So let's see, what's intangible? Dance, traditional costumes. Intangible cultural heritage means the practice, representations, expressions, knowledge, skills, as well as the instruments, object, artifacts, and all these cultural things. Even food is an intangible cultural thing. Local food, even I think nasi lemak is considered heritage. It's unique to Malaysia, I think, so far. So, so these are called intangible, the clothes, all these things. Language also is quite intangible. Next, so these are some examples of intangible. How the hawker cook his food, the painting, batik, it's all intangible. The dance by Zorasli in Selangor, and then also the batik, the kebayas of the, there's all cultural elements. It's all intangible. So what is tangible? Tangibles are building, mainly we associate intangible with buildings. Old buildings, ruins, all the castle on the right is in Japan. So all these are tangible. So then we have marine archaeological. So marine archaeological gives us a lot of information of the people that lived those days. They travel, the ship they travel in. You look at the whole sea floor of these vessels, wreck with all these vase and other things in, and it gives an indication how those people lived those days. So when you have this, then you go back to land, then you found some old building in the excavation site. Now, then you compare, then you learn from where does this come from. So you may find another what we call wine vessel or wine jar somewhere on land, and it match. So then you have a trace thing. Then you know the people from here goes to over there and how. So then you link. Then the culture of this group of people from this side of the continent, they go the other side. So there's influence now. So the buildings and the style of living start to influence each other. Nowadays, you see there's a lot of influence from everywhere. Malaysia is like a hot pot of everything is inside here. All kind of ethnics and all different from all over the world is in Malaysia now. So we can trace, you see, by our intangible, we can trace where you come from, how you, why you are like that now, these things. So we have, besides that, we have the cultural landscape. Yes, heritage, these are also heritage things. We don't really see it, but very sadly, Malaysia we are seeing a lot of diminishing of this cultural landscape. From my side, especially when I was very young, we used to see different type of flowers were being planted by our parents then. Nowadays, you don't see. We get imported plants filling the gaps because everything imported is always good. So there's the influence there. So we start losing our cultural identity in that way. That's why we want to maintain, just like the ruin in Mexico on the top right there. they maintain it so people can go and see. This belongs to the Aztec people. And so from there, you know that these people at one time were flourishing a whole area of this Mexico. And they were very advanced in them. So we know that they were advanced people. They were very highly developed at that time, you know, able to build this as a big, huge, heavy buildings, structures, just like pyramid or so. So it gives you identity. How do they do it, you know? You think they're primitive, but then how do they do it? They are much more engineering thoughts than us, than we thought. Now, the one on the bottom there is an excavation site. So it gives us an idea of what it was, how those people do things those days. Ruins also tell us about, at that time, how does the people live. And sometimes you're surprised, hey, they got toilets already those days, you know. And we thought that they would just go and do their business around the street or drain or riverside. No, they have proper toilets, you know, they have proper kitchen and all those things. So we learned that these people were actually quite advanced. It was a few hundred years back, but they are rich, advanced, enjoying these sort of things. And we thought we only have to enjoy the last 100 years. See, so this thing is quite revealing. It tells you all these things. Natural heritage, I said earlier. So the Mulu Cave is in Sarawak, and the Belum forest is in Perak. And we have a few more, you know, Linggong, you know, the Perak Man, also is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So these are all captured because they are very unique. The Mulu Caves, they're very unique. Belum, also very unique. Linggong is because it's also unique. If you go there, you go and look at the museum over there, you learn a lot. That it's a very unique place. Perak Man was there. Why was he there? What was the thing at that time, you know? So people were there thousands of years ago already. Then cultural artifacts. So sometimes you see these things in a small market that you take it for granted. You know, these are old things. But next day you will see, buy a nice one and then study it, and you start to give you an idea of it's going to tell you a story, you know, by looking at it, where you come from, how you made, where you made, you know, the colors. Well, how do they make this color blue, you know, or red or pink? Who are these craftsmen who do all these things? How do they fire it? How do they fire it? Where do they get this technology from? Wood carving, how do they carve? What kind of tools they use to carve? You know, these are you need to have this kind of inquisitive mind to understand these things. So you will then further to get more information. And as on that journey of acquiring such information, you learn a lot more things than you previously think it was. So again, that perception start come into play, that you buy this vase and you say, no, this is a Ming vase from China. Actually, it's made in Vietnam. One of the most famous kiln is in Vietnam. Okay, now let's go to conservation. Conservation is a process of maintaining and managing change to a heritage asset in a way that sustains and where appropriate enhances its significance. So there are some legislative requirements for preservation. The court considered this is to be interpreted as a preserve from harm. There is harm to its significance, not simply its fabric. Now, what that means is that, what is conservation is that you stop the rot or that monument or that building from falling apart. It's called conservation. Preservation is just to make it back again, or like restoration. So what we do is that it's an old building, we study it, okay, we apply science to it, how to not let the building or monument to rot further or to decay further until you start to collapse. See, so that's where the conservation comes in. You have to stop from the harm, preserve from harm. Okay. So definition, there are a few good definition. You can get it out from the internet. There are now plenty of these things internet. But what I'm trying to say is that hopefully I explain easier so that you go into the internet, you look at it, you read, it give you an idea, or you are able to understand it better. Okay, conservation is a means by which the true nature of an object is preserved. So then the primary goal of a conservation professional individual with training is special expertise, preservation of cultural properties, material. So these are the important things. The ICOMOS, the activity of the conservator, restorer, concept technical examination, and he does, you see, all these are also read. There are more than that. So I just thought that these three are quite significant, and that's why I put it here for you all to read and understand what is conservation. Just not go in there and put back plastering. There's more than that. So it comes as you go deep into it. It's very exciting to know that what they do last time, and beginning you find it was very amusing. Like we did, I think Gedung Abdullah in Klang, the old plastering was consists of shell, seashells. Karang, things like that. They added into it to make the plastering. So we never thought of that. Why then we realized that the shell is very hard. So they save because people eat all those shells and they throw away. So they collect it, wash it, and use it part of like aggregate in concrete. Something like that. So then, what about judgment in conservation? When undertaking the conservation project, since every object is unique, the conservator should not be performing an oft-repeated process which has developed into an automatic cognition sequence. Now that again, you see that it refers back to perception, right, which was I started off telling you. After we start to have that habit that every time we see an old building, oh, that is lime plaster, the brick, and this and that. We shouldn't be biased to that. We can say, well, roughly it's like that, but I think it's good to have further investigation to learn what it actually was. So it should be done that way. Don't give bias so fast. Give a perception that this building is like that. No, it's not. So conclusion or decision can be made on the basis of indicators and probabilities when facts are not clearly or fully ascertained. So you have just been careful when you make assumptions. You must be intelligent enough. So how do you get to that so-called intelligence to give an opinion? Is through years experience. That after every few projects that you go and explore or something like that, you learn and you gather knowledge. So then you get a learned interpretation of the building. So that knowledge, a series of facts and associated understanding which form them into a coherent, meaningful theory. So that even if the theory is backed by facts, then you give a good factual theory is substance, and not just pull from thin air. You give an opinion. I say my theory is this, but there's no facts to it to support the theory. So in conservation, this may be the knowledge about the object of or conservation treatment, such as mechanical cleaning. This can be described as the substantial expertise. I will dwell into this type of roughly telling you how do the cleaning mechanical, we shouldn't be using so much of that. When can we use that? So weighting factor, this defines the likelihood of successful outcomes through using this technique or the important factor in view of particular circumstances. Now the weighing factor is that you need to weigh what is the best solution for this old building. How are you going to do? So you weigh the good the things. Sometimes it's not everything you can achieve. Sometimes you cannot achieve certain things because you don't know. So what are you going to do with it? So we normally just leave it, make something to make sure that it won't crumble or damage further. We keep it until such time in the future somebody come up with a good solution how to handle this, or a way of we can do experiment with it and get the result that we want. So at the moment we don't have, we leave it, just prevent it from deteriorating. Okay. Okay, conservation principles, policy, guides set up 6 high levels. So what they are, historic environment is a shared resource. Everyone should be able to participate in sustaining the historic environment. Understanding the significance of places is vital. Significant places should be managed to sustain their values. Decision about change must be reasonable, transparent, and consistent. Documenting and learning from decision is essential. So documentation is all about, or rather conservation is all about documenting. Reports, documentation is absolutely important. So what do we mean by significant and heritage value? I think some of you have asked me, it's quite a common question they've been asked. How do you do this? How do you value? Does this building has a heritage value? So here, give you some idea what it is. The idea of significance of the building, of the heritage, so-called heritage building, lies at the core of this principle. Significant collective terms for the sum of all heritage value attached to and each building and ecological site or larger historical site. So it must have a significance. So what is considered significant? It can be an architectural, means that the building is very unique. Say you're all architecture students. Say there was one, say Frank Lloyd Wright came to KL, did a building 100 years ago, many years ago. So it becomes significant that somebody of that nature come and design the building. So that become a very significant building with a heritage value, architectural heritage value. You see that. So it becomes significant. Or even the small little house in Alustar where Tun Mahathir was born and brought up, a little small house, it becomes significant because that was his house. It's been kept. So it's significant. And what about those buildings? Parliament House is not very old, it's not even 100 years old, but it's significant. So it's got heritage and it's now a gazetted building. It doesn't need to be 100 years old to trigger off that it's a significant heritage value. But the significance of the value of the asset, the buildings or the monument, So then you have the conservation principle set up method for thinking systematically, consistent about the heritage value. Okay. So you develop a systematic of evaluation of these things. First, this, second, third. Then at the end, you say, okay, it does has significant conservation value, and they should have by the principles that it leads to that. So we have quite a probable good heritage building here. So that's how you evaluate. So what's OUV? Now this word you all ought to know. What's outstanding universal value? You will come across this word every now and then, especially in the heritage report. So what's OUV? According to UNESCO, outstanding universal value means cultural and or natural significance which is so exceptional. The word is exceptional, as to transcend national boundaries and to be of common importance for present and future generations for all humanities. So when you evaluate, you must have outstanding universal value, something that is so important, that very extremely unique. Then you can say it has an OUV. Then with the OUV, then you will give a lot of weightage to the building to be significant heritage building. Okay. So in this picture here, it's taken in Siem Reap. Conservators are rebuilding, restoration work is going on. They dig up and they found new things. And so the stones are how to put them together. From the ruin on the left, you see the stones. So they have to really put like a jigsaw puzzle of trying to figure out how these stones are connected. So these are all over the years. Some of these things have fallen down. So now they have with computer much easier. So they can 3D them, and then the probability of fixing them, finding them. Those days, probably when I was there, we were manually trying to figure out which goes here, where this one goes there, and we still got a few thousands of pieces to put them together. So what's the importance of the past? Why is the past important and important of preserving the past? So I put that here. Number 2 is that there are probably 8 reasons, maybe more, but debatable. So what's curiosity, understanding, control, the past give rise to the present, justify the reason for the present, belief, aesthetic, value, memories, veneration of age. Now, come to think of it, even the laws that we have enacted now, the country laws here, it has a history. Things were then that bad then. They sort of have simple laws. As the society gets complicated, sophisticated, the laws also gets improved and become more sophisticated to address the issue. So it's a progression, but then sometimes you want to know how does the law started, why this law was started, what was it in the first place, and that's how your curiosity. So you go back. So that's why it's important in the past to know them. This thing has happened here. The image is on the left is from the mines of Sungai Lembing. It's now flooded. You can't go in, but these are quite safe. Near one you can go in, but you can't. The deeper one you can't go in. But it's significant that because it was a commercial building. I mean a mine, tin mine, one of the only, probably the largest underground tin mine in the world at that time. So it has a significant history there. And if you go and explore further, you will see a lot of artifacts, some old buildings that that people live. But then how do they go in? What do they wear? All these things. And then after they come out, where do the workers stay? Where do the managers stay? What were they? Who were they? You know, this. So the past is, by exploring, we tell you the past of the township of Sungai Lembing. So nature of conservation, objects of the past are important and are preserved because of the information they contain. You look this little thing like a chandi in Siam Reap, you look at the decoration. Because when we go in, we will take a lot of photographs, piece them together in detail so that we go back and then we analyze it. So every carving is a symbolism in there. It tells you the story. And it tells you what those people at the time they believe. What do they believe? How do they believe? And then they transfer what they believe, carvings and all that. So then you can tell what these people were. Who were they? Even sometimes this carving will show these people how did they live at that time. And it tells a story. So it's very important to know how these people were there, who were there. And you'll be amazed that sometimes you get out of the blues, one of the carving shows that a person of not a local person. If you study looking, probably the person could come from Africa, you know, or other countries. So then you see, hey, this guy is not local, you know. Then it triggers off a curiosity question now. Where do these people come from? How do they come here? See? So that's why the past is so important. So every object is in part a history document. Yeah, they don't have paper. So this is how they document it in a way. It contains information about the material from which it was made, assembled, and blah, blah, blah. Every object is in part an aesthetic and physical entity, an experience of the feel, color, and shape. So next time you go to see one of these things, understand it, how they do it, how they put the stone together, how do they carve it, you know, what tools do they carve, why so fine, how could they get into so fine carving? Huh? What were they? Who are these people, artisans who do this? How long do they do this? You may not get all the answers, but at least you know that there are a lot more things you need to know. So as all objects contain aspects which are definable as being documents of the past. This is it. The building you see. You go to Jalan Tang Si, I think most of you know Jalan Tang Si now, the PAM old office is. It is, what I call that? It's a document of the past. You go into the building, you say, wow, look at the tiles, look at the wall, look at the tingkap, look at the roof. I say, wow, those people those days built like that, you know. Of course, the toilet has been modified, Otherwise, you also want to know what those days, how do they, where do they go and do their business? You know, how do they, what kind of toilet, they squat and sit or what? You go to Single Living General Manager, there's the WC is right above like a throne, you know. Then you say, wow, those people those days, they know how to enjoy. So again, I'll have to speed up a bit now. I don't want to keep you all night here. To ensure that none of the aspects lost during conservation period. So it's a significant thing that we need to maintain. So key charters. Now, who govern all these things, right? You want to ask. Now, Steven, you talk about all these things, but from where? What principle are you basing on now? So those days, people already start doing what are the need to do. They group up together internationally, and then they come up with an international standard from which they can then everybody's have a standard to follow. So these are some of the dates. You know, the important one I want you to bring is the third one called the 1964. Is the Venice Charter. Now, up to today, we still use Venice Charter. I will ask you to go to Google it, Venice Charter. The whole thing, the charter is there. It's just 2-3 pages of the concepts and everything that it goes about. The definitions are all there. So this is right now the main document that we are all using. So later, 1975, the European Charter of Architecture Heritage also, and each one will have its own charter. But for us, Venice Charter is the main one. The document has a so we have then the next one we will be looking at the 1999, the Bura Charter. Bura Charter is very much a what we call it, the Venice Charter, but it's adopted by Australia with some changes to suit their locality. Yeah? So Malaysia, we didn't have ours, but we adopt all this to be part of our way forward, how we handle these things. The building on the left is that's the old PEM Tangsy. And then the one is you see the deterioration of a stone. This one is in, I think, in Siem Reap, I think. So conservation, we have to protect this from deterioration. Even stones can deteriorate. Huh? I'll show you what causes. So this is a Venice Charter. I won't dwell very much. Go and read it. Google it. Plenty. Very easy. You can download the document. Read it. Okay. The Venice Charter codifies internationally accepted standards of conservation. So they started this, and this becomes like a rudely we say it's like a Bible to us. This is how the main document. Then this from there, a lot more other documents comes under it. So there you go, the Bura Charter. Define a basic principle, procedures we follow when heritage places are undergoing conservation. What you need to do and all that. Then later on, you come up in 1994, this Nara document. Nara is a town in Japan. It was almost gone in made of timber and then redo. So when they redo the town again, then the word of authenticity starts to come into play. So what's authenticity? So when people start to build a building, they just remember the penjara we thought was a police station. Yeah, the word authenticity comes to play there. So really, halfway through, then we realize that it's not a jail, but what I call that, police station. So the authenticity, but we don't have much document to move on. So, but they want to build it up that way. So there was a lot of assumption then. Not the best thing to do, but it was then that was the decision then. So authenticity is that you must go back to this original, yang asal, you know. So, for example, the picture of the roof tiles. So you need to go back and find where the same roof tiles again. You cannot replace it, you know, unless you want to replace it because you can't find anymore. You put something else different totally. So people know this is new. Means the old one you keep somewhere for record the old one. Take photograph, measurements, and then keep it somewhere so that there's a record of the old one. But what is now new? Unless one fine day you get someone to do a good replica and all that. Okay. So so the authenticity is very important. So when you do, I really must emphasize that the authenticity is so important in this. You cannot cheat and make look alike. You know, you cannot. Try to avoid. If you cannot really do something totally different. That's why you see that there's a mixture of super modern and old. For example, the Louvre in Paris. Why is a glass pyramid? So that you maintain that this is super new and you don't want to disrupt something of a replica. So then you become a false information. People thought this one belongs to that. No, he doesn't want. IMP choose to do it differently. So then you can see the new and the old. So the Hawaiian protocol is quite a new one. Basically, to deal with the local in Asia. So it was a process that is been adopted and be used in Asia. Hawaiian is in Vietnam. So the protocols were all developed following a UNESCO regional workshop. Protocols were developed as a response to increasing number of threats, region linked to. So a lot of these things were being developed every time. So we learn from mistakes, then we improve the protocols. Next time, make sure that the process is orderly so that it's a proper documentation and not you don't miss out anything. See, the last sentence is the professional guidelines for ensuring and preserving the authenticity of heritage. So again, we cannot emphasize. So then the other word that we want to bring to you attention is we call it reversible. So you're not sure, but you want to build something. So what you do is that make sure when you do that thing, it's reversible. So you say, oops, sorry, wrong one. So but if you use the concept of reversible, you can always take it away and then put back what this thing is the original, reversible, without damaging the original thing. Yeah, we call it reversible. So that is also part of the conservation consideration now. So now let's get back to the conservation. So how much time have I got? Wow, I'm going to take a whole Friday night. Okay, what is conservator? So that what did we talk about concepts and all those things? Yeah. So what's a conservator? So to do a conservation work, you besides the conservator, who are the people involved? You have the architects, archaeology, you have engineers, biologists, physicists, chemists, botanists, linguists, QS, historian, planner, and a lot more. You see that these are the people that involved in vision. Architect is just one part of it, you know. Okay, like the architects, the leaders are normally. So, but you see that the range of people. I have not put in sociology, anthropologists, all these are also involved in there. So that we then can study, like on the picture on the left, so that we can study it. Everybody, the engineers, make sure the structure is still good, can maintain it doesn't drop or fall, or what happened. Okay, biologists also after later I show you why biologists, physics are so important. Botanists also, why is it important? Linguists, why linguists? Because sometimes you while studying, you encounter some old carving of certain language. So you need to call a language expert in to decipher it, what it was, what is written. Yeah? So what must a conservator be skilled in? Big questions, isn't it? So what special skill do you have? What knowledge? What personality? How inquisitive? So like I said just now, I show you all these the various professional people with the expertise. Those each have his own skills. The architect has his own special skills. So what knowledge? Each of us has our little knowledge. So we combine them to tackle that. Personality, that we all must be able to work together. Share knowledge is very important. So if a personality, you get a person, a team who is not willing to share, then the process will come to a standstill. Will not go much further. So how inquisitive, that's very important. You must be inquisitive to be part of a conservator. You just want to go on digging to find out what causes this, why is this done this way, who was doing this, and all these things. So you have an inquisitive mind. It's like CSI, yeah? I think you've all seen the TV series CSI, something like that. So what dedication? Passion, it's passion to me. I like doing this because of the inquisitive of it. So what objective? So the objective is find the heritage, history, cultural, we have gone through just now, tradition, and customs. So all these are the objectives. One site can tell you a lot of these things, the story of these things already. Go to Malacca, Penang, all this is there. One building, you can get all these things already. You will stop there for a while and start thinking what I told you about, all this will come into play. So conservator for heritage buildings, what is his role? What he needs to know? What qualification must he have? Must he be physically fit? Role, again, as I showed, it can be, depending on what role you want to play in. You can be to do recording, you can be a photographer to take the building as a record, mapping out all these things, or you can be a scientist, what you want to play, the role. If it's a small building, fine, you can do the leader and do everything, but it's a huge complex, like Siam Reap, then you become, you focus into a small part of it. What you need to know is your specialization. Which part you want to go in. What qualification? It's up to you. Architect, engineer, they all can be part of the conservation. Be a conservator. Must he physically fit? Preferably, because you need to walk, climb, but not some. I get some old conservators are very old, 70 years old plus, they're still very active. Big problem walking or climbing, but his mind is still very smart. Okay. So architect who has knowledge of conservation, now this is particularly more for the architect. Team, can you imagine the whole lot of people, to pick his team members best suited to complete the task, to coordinate and establish objective. So if you are the team leader, you need to pick out who are your team players, who will be your team inside there. Like say, give the whole range of people. So you give a building, first thing you get the engineers, the structures, and then the M&E, so that you don't simply put in electricity, all these conduits and all that. There are protocols that you're not supposed to do this and not supposed to do that, right? And a lot of these are scientists that you also want to get involved in. So revelation, investigation, and preservation. It's a RIP methodology. You can Google this. Okay. I'll give you more. Okay, this one is just some things that you can do. Planning, organizing, address, all these things, you can do your own metrics. As you go on, you build your own metrics. So this metrics is what is good. Pilot starting off aircraft before flying off is checklist. So you can create your own checklist and all these things, so that you don't make sure that you don't miss a process. So it's so important, because once you miss a step, you cannot come back because the things has been done already. So there is considerations, RIP balance. So intent, use of object, context, conservation ethics, condition of object, object composition, the whole thing. So these are the things that I follow, and I use that as a guide sometimes, so that I make sure that I don't miss out anything in my interpretation of a building. Then the activities. So intervention, interventive conservation, and preventive conservation. Intervention means something that is physical. You're going to damage it a little bit, preventive, you try not to, okay, the opposite, but so it has its own way, just like we call a non-destructive test and a destructive test. Non-destructive test means you use some instrument to read x-rays, are all non-destructive, whereas destructive, you use a hammer or chisel to dig it, break it up to see what is it, to study what inside. So this is just a diagrammatic workflow on what you need to do. This will come naturally as you get more experience in these things. So this is a generalized sequence of interventive conservation action and decision. So as you go on, you will develop this. So one of the things that your university that you're asked to do, measure drawings and all that. So you get a building like this, so all on the right, and what you do, So you get a sketchbook and you do detailings and measurements and all these things. It take a lot of photograph, videotape it. Also nowadays, video is so easy. You can do so that what you call 4K, so sharp, photograph. You take thousands of photographs, as many as you can. Now with advancement, laser measurement, you don't have to pull the tape up. You can use triangulate it, to get the height and all that. So you don't have to reach yourself, climbing up the roof and all that. You have drone, to take a photograph. So and now with the aerial drone, you can do a 3D of it now. With the advances of technology, AIs, I think I'm a bit backwards, but I know guys were doing that now. So this is how you do. You get a grid book and do all these sketches. So that you go back and then you draw it, the measured drawings. Do as much detail as possible, materials and all that. Again, another metrics here to do. So to help you, to assist you, that you make sure that all these are there. So these are developed as you go on. Just showing examples of what you can do on these things. So now the crux of it, analytical science in conservation. So in our analytical of these structures and all, so we apply biology, we apply chemistry, we apply physics. Or even new building nowadays also we use this, they apply. So why biology, why chemistry, why physics? Do you need to be a scientist? Well, I'm not very good. I'm not a scientist in a way, but I need to know the basic of these things, which is good enough for me to move on and to understand them. These are the three common things that are threat to the buildings. So what are they? So let's look at it. See, biological threat. This is called biology. So mosses, lichen, and the one on the bottom right is raccoon, birds, animal, rats, and all these termites. These are all biological threats. So you understand. So some people say, wow, these mosses and lichens are so nice and can beautify, the buildings to look old and nice. But actually, these algae and all that lichens, they have roots, micro roots. These micro roots are the one that is, like the millions or thousands of micro needles poking into your building. So that's why the paint will move off and the top layer of the bricks or plaster will start falling because of all these micro roots. Yeah, the needle slowly they eat away. And then what other biological? Then you got bacteria. So this thing we got dirt and all. Why we must clean the building? Why we have to clean? Those old days buildings are uneven, plastering and all. So dirt will accumulate because of using because of something like wetness can cause that. Then the other one we call it the ions, positive, negative ions, also attract dirt sticking onto those things. So when there's dirt and there's moisture, bacteria will grow. So bacteria secrete some chemicals. So that also again can be a danger to the building. So that's why biological threat, chemical threat, rising dam, all this chemical. Look at the stone on the bottom right there. All the years sulfuric acid has eaten away, and this part now is exposing the aggregate. So if you don't do any further, this thing will collapse, and then you miss out the whole thing. If you go to overseas, those statues, without nose and things like that. So those are also chemical. So rising dam are all chemical reactions, effervescence are all chemical reactions. So you need to know a bit of chemical to understand why this thing happened, that happened. Because there are a lot more, but just to know, you just need to look at the chemical threat. So this is physical. The one on the top left is wind. So it's physical. Wind, abrasion of wind. Building by the seaside. The wind blowing with the salt crystals are like sandpaper. So after a few years, and then the bricks fall down. It's the foundation of the wick. So after chemical reaction, the next thing the wind come and break it, push the whole wall down. So all these are threat. So when you do conservation, you need to study them. How strong are the mortar there is it strong enough to maintain, or we need to replace the whole mortar, redo the wall again. So this is a physical threat. So pre-site intervention work, so you have site visit, recording, analysis, historical analysis, proposed intervention work, and then you tender. So these are the steps that you need to do. It's very general now, I'm just putting it very general. Okay, I'm coming towards the end already. Hope so far so good. Huh? Okay, this is what you do in analysis. This is a picture by architect June. She's one of the good friend, and she's very fantastic in doing all this conservation work. She's very detailed. So you can see the one on the meter is a moisture meter. So you understand how much moisture, capillary system, understand capillary system, how water is being attracted, how high they can go. And so on the left is also it's a color. You take samples to analyze them. So you then you look at it as it's not we are scraping out information. This is called information. We dig out, scrape out this plastering, what they are, and how many layers are there. You know, those days people just go layer of paint or whatever is it. So then we establish. So when you scrape, sometimes you realize that actually there are about 5, 6 or more layers to the original layer. So that's how you do studies and all these things. Then after that, you finally find, oh, there's a Chinese character, for example, you find, you know. Then you say, oh, this was a Chinese merchant house before. See what? Then whose thought of the structure has changed now, that it was something else than what you all think it is now. So next one is the final one is a site intervention. That means you go on to the site now. So, but you still do investigation because physically you're now on site. You remove more of the things, so you learn more. At the same time, you do all the recording before, during, and after, and then you go to do analysis, further analysis, the trial and treatment. So the conservator will then recommend what kind of treatment is best. Just for example, there's now the 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐬𝐞𝐫𝐯𝐚 lichen. So we recommend what kind of chemical is best to clean out all those things. To kill it, for example, kill it totally so that it will not grow back again the next few years. Then closing means once you finish, you close it up. Okay. So last 2 slides. So these are work been done. It's all very tedious. Very minimum mechanical equipment that being used, mainly manual. So that's why conservation works are expensive and slow. Because you don't use machine and go and start drilling and hacking away, is it? Because you may disturb the wall or the structure, or you create more cracks, you know, things before. So you try not to disturb it. And after that, you once you get the trial mix and everything, you compare, then you formulate it again, and then this is how you finish it. So it's all manual, huh? Okay, start and then towards the end. This is the finished product on the right side. Okay, so that's my last slide. Thank you. So I will stop here, and do we have time for question and answers? Or is there any questions?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Architect Steven, for the interesting and rich sharing. Hope you guys enjoy it and gain a lot of information and knowledge. So we'll be having our Q&A session now. We got some questions from you, from the audience. The first question is from MFO. For heritage building, what approach are we having dealing with the compliance to bylaws such as fire requirement?
Okay, here's an interesting question because I'm also chairing one committee that is producing a fire safety for heritage building. We're almost halfway there now. The problems we are facing is that the old buildings doesn't comply to uniform building by law. For example, the staircase and the exit and all these things, it doesn't. So we are formulating guidelines on how to overcome this problem. We have colleagues, architects who are having problem meeting those uniform building bylaws particularly to fire safety. So we do have the problem, and other way of meeting them is to have modern firefighting systems, which you can, so that you don't have to dig or cut away part of the building to have all these things. So we are looking into active systems also to complement on what we have. Value of the, we have problems, as you can see in old towns, the old part of the city is now going to decay when the what I call it, intangible part of the people have moved out now. So you get new cafe and also coming in to invade the old structures. So the old structures are maintained. However, the intangible part of the city has now diminished. So you don't experience what it was, cobbler, So it does change that the cultural or anthropology or social system of that particular area. First thing, I think it's expensive to maintain those buildings, so new people moving in. Those are the things that it's an ongoing things. We hope to address it slowly, bit by bit. Well, how do we convince? We hope to have develop new ideas for tax relief, things like that, to help these people to, because to maintain the building is expensive. Then number two, you're sitting right in the middle of town, and it's a very expensive piece of land it's become. So obviously he'd rather sell it off and then move on. So we have to think of how to get back the people, how to they make it more affordable. It's a long journey actually to achieve all those things. Is that I answered that now? Yimin, did I answer that?
Okay, I think you have answered the question.
Yeah.
Next question will be from Queenie. Do you think there are enough jobs in the market for architecture graduates who are interested in heritage? Where would you advise someone to start?
Okay. Heritage is, you must first a lot, like I put it earlier, you need to have a lot of passion, interest in it, and have a very inquisitive mind. There are jobs there, specialized architect doing this. I know a few in Penang, Malacca as well, and KL. They enjoy what they are doing, and they have become specialized in this. It is tedious. Conservation don't actually give you the thing of how to design and all this, unless it's a re-adaptive use. Then the challenge is there. But here the challenge is different. That if you go back to what I said just now earlier, I go through, you must have those kinds of creative mind to actually, whether there's a market for this, it's very hard for me to say, but I know of architects who are doing quite well, doing just a lot of this conservation work, dealing with old buildings and all that. They do have, there's not many of them, but they like doing what they are doing. Yeah. There is, but so I think if you want to go in, you have to go in full time. I mean, not say full time, I mean going to it a lot, not just skimming at the surface. They won't take you very far. So you become an expert in it. Become expert, yeah, why not? The next question.
Next question will be from Chia Yvonne. Is there any courses for conservation in Malaysia?
I believe there is. Some school has conservation classes. I think some school. Part of the architectural program, I think you have that, isn't it? Measure drawings and things like that. PAM also does have courses for this introductory to conservation works. There are always workshops every now and then by the JWN and some other universities, so they have all these courses as well. So you can take part in these courses, short courses. Some are 1 week or so. Masters, there are masters program in conservation, which they look at things bigger than what I told you. We talk other more things than that. Yeah, there you can do that. And some also went up to PhD also in conservation work, conservation studies, I think.
Okay, next question is from the same person also. Ask that oftentimes heritage building owners do not see value in preserving old buildings, such as high maintenance and renovation costs, low return of investment compared to a typical residential block. How do we convince or encourage owners to carry out conservation works?
I think I answered it just now. I read this question. Okay, it's not an easy question. It's a tough question actually, and no easy answer to these things. It's an ongoing thing, even for us professionally. What we are doing, there's no real fast answer or quick answer to that thing. We are still studying how to overcome these problems. Like I said earlier, you can see the whole street. Sometimes people just deserting away, moving away. Because of the rental, they can't afford it. And again, it's right to say the maintenance is very high. You have to preserve it. It's a very holistic thing, to do. Old men, the medicine is always more expensive, eat more, some more, So these are the same thing like that. So unless you can think of something to do with it, that's why in certain areas they open up to have cafe, very modern type of things, really adaptive use. So at least the scale of buildings and are maintained and all that, rather than you demolish all and start all over again. So those are the things in Singapore, they're very strong in this. The old towns, the old part of Singapore now been, there's a lot of preservation going on in there and conservation work. So they are seeing the value in all the things as a tourist attraction on these things. So we should be doing that at the same time, same thing. Cost, well, you got to slowly think of how to overcome that. Obviously, well, I can't really explain, but you take time also by investors, also the government has to work hand in hand to make this thing work.
Okay.
So to convince, I think hard to convince. I mean, we have to try to convince them. Like I got clients who we convince them and they say, yeah, we like to keep it that way as it is from my grandfather's time and now we want to maintain it that. So we teach them how to do it the most efficient and the most economical way of doing it. Okay, hopefully I answered that.
Yeah, I think they got you. Next question will be from Ping Jinong.
All these tough questions, these people.
Okay, next question will be, what are your thoughts on modernizing old buildings? Because some projects in China actually modernize old buildings in order to make people stay within a certain village or settlement. Just want to know your thoughts.
Modernization of old buildings, we call it readaptive use. But why not? Now with this this technology which enable you to do a lot of things. For example, Wi-Fi, you don't have to install wire, right? You can go wireless. So it doesn't this damage your building and all. You still can do that. Wiring can go on conduits also. So yes, why not? You can do a lot of these new things without actually doing intervention, serious intervention by knocking here and there. You don't really need to do it carefully instead of using a core, to penetrate something rather than to use a chisel hammer or a hammer jack to punch through. You can core. Be expensive, but you maintain up the building, and I think it can be done. In China, they maintain. I think some of you have been there. How they modify the building, incorporate new things, and all very tastefully done. Is knowing how to maintain as much of the authenticity. Remember I told you about authenticity, how much to maintain it. The key part of the building is maintained so that the important of the aspect of building, the character of the building are maintained. So you get both modern as well as the olden. Can be, you can work harmoniously. Think of it properly. I'm sure it can be done.
Okay, so I hope you answered that. And we'll have the last question here. And she said, "Hello, sir. I'm Vinci from UCSI University.
Okay.
It was a really interesting lecture. I'm currently having a project to have a site intervention by conserving center report. What will the site synergy would you look at if you are to do this project? Or any general site synergy you will normally eye on while doing site intervention?"
Okay, depend on the site and the scale of the building. Number one is that you need to study first the surrounding. Who is going to influence the building? Who is going to use the building? So if in Sentul Depot, I guess I know how. And what first you want to do? What kind of crowd are you want to do with it? You know, you can't build something, then you don't know what to do with it later on. You don't have any occupier, nobody going to use it. The important thing is that what are you going to use it first for? Now, then with that, then you start to study surrounding, whether it's going to be intensive for a lot of people or not going to be a lot of people. So you need a research and do all these things. Then you narrow down once you are, remember I was showing you all those metrics and all that, what you want to do and how to get all this information. But you need to have all those information. Once you do that, then you have eliminations, and then you come to it's like a design brief. So you can do a design brief and what is good for that place. What kind of synergy are you looking for it? That's super important. You don't want to build something and then convert something and then nobody want to come. Some people talk about ROI, return on investment. So again, you need to look into that thing. I would want to know what is best for this, before I actually do an intervention to this building. I want to know what is best for this, how it's going to generate money to the owner. That is also an important thing. If it's an old foundation, people have money, they want to do it for a gallery, for example, then we start to think how best to do it. That what might see kept. And again, we then introduce concepts of reversible, authenticity, all this have to come in. So if cannot, at least we can always reverse it back again and without totally damaging the original fabric of the building. So you may want to do that. I have no straight answers to that, but you need to do a lot of research on those things. The parameters, surrounding, what you use for. I think KL over there in Sentul, they have changed into a cinema theater, and it's very successful. So yeah, you need to do a lot of tests. What you call that? Investigation and study. Okay, the next question.
Okay, I think you have answered Vinci's question. And
I hope.
yeah. And we will have the last question here from Siti Azira. Hi, sir. Is there any specific guidelines or method for recollection, preserve, and conserving traditional building?
Okay. There are concepts which Siti, now you will look back to what I said. You download those charters, Venice charters, NARA documents, and a few more which I show you now, Pura charter and all. You look at those charters; they have described the conservation and preservation. What is the thing that you need to look out for? The concept of it. Okay, so now you understand the concept, then it's easy for you to know what you need to do already. Look at those. It's supposed to be guidelines for you. The NARA documents are authenticity, reversible. So those are the keywords. So then you start using those keywords. You will then apply to it. How to do it? What's reversible? We keep on telling you the authenticity, yang asal, things like that. So you must keep those important elements to it. You don't take them off. Then how do I keep it? That's where your minds, you have to think of how to maintain it. This is the challenge is there. So there are guidelines like internationally. You can use those are my guidelines as well. I use that. Then you formulate how to overcome all those things. Traditional house, yes, you need to know which are the new, which is the old part. Where you want to keep the new one, or you want to keep them both. Certain part of traditional house may have some modification already during the years. So whether you want to keep it or you want to take it off, or later on I take it out. Right now, I just maintain as much as I can, kekalkan. And later on, I'll do intervention later on. When I have more money, I know what to do with it. So those are the things that you can think of.
Okay,
Hope I
thank
answer
you.
your question.
Thank you, Steven. I think your answer can help a lot. And before we end our today's session, I would like to thank again Architect Steven for your wonderful sharing. And thank you for joining us for tonight's online lecture. We hope you enjoy it. So do keep in touch with our MASA Instagram and Facebook for the next online lecture. If you wish to have a review back of today's lecture, you can search it on our MASA YouTube. Until then, have a nice night and we'll catch you next time. Have a good evening and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Yimin. And thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.